The big, beautiful bill is here, which means delicious, delicious permanent tax cuts, apparently. And most importantly, funding in the hundreds of billions of dollars mark for deportations and for a massive increase in ICE agents, my friends. Oh, yes, that's right. A lot of new ICE agents are coming to town. It's going to get crazy. People I don't think were taking the Trump administration seriously, but they should have. Oh, they should have. Donald Trump has been serious pretty much ever since he came back. I think his first term, it was more of a shock and a surprise to have won, maybe. But for him to come back after they tried to destroy him, there's an old saying, if you're going to try to kill the king, you better make sure he's dead, because otherwise the king comes after you. And now Donald Trump is moving ahead with unprecedented lightning speed, obliterating his enemies left and right. And there's not much that the Democrat Party can really do right now about it. And all the people protesting and moaning and wailing and gnashing of teeth attempting to riot, they're only playing into his hands. The more that you try to burn down your cities and try to stop him, the faster it's going to happen, because the more his supporters are going to be okay with it and wanting to ramp up the efforts. So right now you got about 22,000 ICE agents. 22,000. There's going to be another 10, maybe 20,000. They're going to almost double, somewhere between 50% and 100% increase in ICE agents. You can expect a massive expansion in deportation facilities, in arrests, and actual deportations themselves. And we're headed now for the inevitable mass deportations that will happen at some point, I think, under Trump's administration. I think it's just a matter of time. I don't know if we're going to get on the scale of Dwight D. Eisenhower with the operation where Eisenhower deported 3 million Mexicans in about 6 months. But that could happen too. It's just too early to tell. So let's see what else there is to say about the bill. Obviously, there is the permanent extension of the Trump tax cuts from 2017. There's the infamous tax on tips elimination up to $25,000, overtime pay. And then there's the Golden Dome defense. I'm actually kind of excited about this. I don't know why we didn't do this sooner. It's essentially the completion of Ronald Reagan's dream of Star Wars, as he called it, basically creating a missile defense system to keep enemy missiles out, like nuclear missiles, out of the U.S., and Trump's calling it the Golden Dome, so that's part of the bill. There's going to be the massive health or policy reforms like Medicaid. And, of course, there's the people that are screaming about the debt increase. Oh, no, it's going to give them another $5 trillion. We're going to add $3.35 trillion in debt, blah, blah, blah. Political hacks like the CBO were supposed to be independent, neutral. And, of course, they never are. And they never account for growth. It's possible you might see a debt increase, but the truth is, at this point, the $36 trillion, $37 trillion in debt doesn't really matter at this point. In for a penny, in for a pound, as they say. Then Donald Trump had something to say about the big bill. And he is projecting that the economy will explode, will rocket after signing the big, beautiful bill. Let's see what he has to say.
And we're sort of celebrating like the biggest bill of its kind ever signed. And it's going to make this country into a rocket ship. It's going to be really great. Mr. President.
He said that a lot of House Republicans yesterday pledged not them to yes.
I think when you go over the bill, it was very easy to get yes. We went over that bill. And
he's not wrong. If you think about this, that bill got passed in such a quick amount of... there were people who thought that once the Senate did their changes, that there was going to be the poison pills. You had people like Tim Pool out there predicting that it wasn't going to pass. And I never thought that... I just didn't have time to jump on over the last couple of days, but I thought at no point was the bill not going to pass. There was going to be some kind of wheeling and dealing. Trump has got plenty of leverage that he could offer the conservatives in there who were, the budget hawks who were worried about the explosion in debt and so on and so forth. And sure enough, they did. Even as recently as 12 to 15 hours ago, people were so excited that maybe it won't pass. And no, it was always going to pass. And now, tomorrow, there's going to be a pretty exciting 4 p.m. signing. But let's continue on with Trump.
after point, biggest tax cut in history, greater security, great on the southern border, immigration is covered. We covered just about everything. Again, it's the biggest bill ever signed of its kind.
Mr. President.
They want to know what deals were made.
And we had a good time in being there. I did not have much of a problem with any of them. As you know, we had 2 negative votes, but we had whatever it was, the final vote.
He didn't even watch. He was like, it's done. We got it.
I did, but I think they would have gone yes anyway. No deals. No deals. What I did is we talked about how good the bill is. I mean, that's a deal, I guess, when you think about it. But obviously convinced them, but it was not hard. This is a great bill. This is going to be a great bill.
Don't forget, there is massive $2 to $3 trillion investments already underway from foreign powers in the U.S. There is the tariffs ongoing with revenue pouring in the hundreds of billions of dollars. If what Trump thinks is going to happen, if there is an explosion in the economy, then Katie barred the doors. It's a gamble, of course. If the economy does not, then you're massively raising the debt. But again, I think that's a small price to pay to get the bigger agenda underway, which is the mass deportation, the cleaning up of the inevitable collapse of the U.S., undoing 30 years of damage from unending streams of people swarming the border, infesting this country, refusing to leave, altering the political landscape forever, it seemed. I mean, California is a classic example of what would happen if this was not reversed. So, and the Biden administration really screwed the pooch by no longer hiding the fact that they wanted mass immigration into the country, just opening the doors, 9 million people crossing in, turning away 3 million, but with a net positive 6.5. It was an impossible situation that was bound to destroy the country, and it opened the eyes to a lot of people who were in denial over it or who didn't really think it was that big of a deal. But no country can survive mass immigration for long and remain the country that they were. And this, by the way, is the same lesson that Europe, the UK, Germany, and even France maybe is beginning to see the light on mass immigration and what sort of danger it is. We're beaten to the punch, but not by much. The entire West is at risk right now. So, the big, beautiful bill, I've talked to a number of people who thought, well, why would they do this when they know there's going to be a lot of crap in it that we're not thrilled about? Because there is going to be crap in this bill that people are not happy with. But Trump learned from his first term, where he only got really one big piece of legislation done before the midterms, before they lost control and were unable to pass anything else. Because after that, it was Russia, the attempts to impeach him. It was never ending. And they basically, he got ground to a halt in the last 2 years of his presidency. So he understood that he might only have one shot. So you try to get everything in there, get it in, get it done. And that's where we're at. So if it works out well, then the Republicans, I think, will not only maintain power, but grow. And then when you talk about deportations, if we actually see true mass deportation, if we see, say, by next year, election day, there are 10 million people that were here illegally out of the country, 1/3 of what we need to get done, that will be a huge win. And I'm also curious to see how many districts will end up turning red over time when the illegals are no longer here. They say that it's not affecting elections. Maybe they're right? But we're going to find out. Then there's also the census. There's so many illegals who are counting in the census. What happens when they're gone? So it's going to be exciting to watch. I think we're in the middle of mass political upheaval, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Anyway, Fox News goes on to write, President Donald Trump on Thursday celebrated Congress's passage of this big, beautiful bill, describing the sweeping measure as the biggest bill of its kind ever signed and promising it's going to make this country into a rocket ship. It's going to be really great. Earlier in the day, the House nearly approved the package, yada, yada, yada. We all saw that. And, of course, there were the two Republican holdouts, Thomas Massie and Brian Fitzpatrick, who voted against the bill. And, of course, no Democrat would vote for it. That'd be political suicide. So it looks like the signing will be at 5 p.m., I'm assuming Eastern. They're going to have their B-2s, F-22s, and F-35s to celebrate by flying over the White House. So it's pretty crazy. People are panicking on the left. Let's see if we can see some of this on X. I mean, people are just losing their damn minds. Let's go to Explore. It's always risky to go here, but let's find out. Here's good old Kamala Harris trying to weigh in. Republicans in Congress have voted to devastate millions of people across our nation and kicking Americans off their health care. Shuttering hospitals, eliminating food assistance, and raising costs. This is Project 2025 in action. Well, this is what Trump's voters wanted. I mean, surprise, surprise, a politician actually follows through. Charlie Kirk celebrating as well, saying Planned Parenthood is officially defunded. That is sure to piss some people off. Let's take a look at what people are saying there. Who will provide birth control, STI testing and treatment, cancer screenings, and prenatal care instead? Pretty much any healthcare provider. And Kirk replies, 3,000 pregnancy crisis centers. Ever heard of them? So great the girls can't access free birth control and free prenatal care for the baby, says Jennifer Fallon. Again, you don't need Planned Parenthood for this. Remember, this was the company that was selling body parts. They got exposed on this a number of years ago, making a profit on chopping up the unborn and selling them wholesale. Let's see what else is being said. Of course, Donald Trump Jr. taking a few victory laps. No more tax on tips. No more taxes on overtime. Yada, yada. This is the White House.
Oh, my God. Okay, it's happening. Everybody see. What's the procedure?
Oh, my God. Looking for group, says the White House. The golden age is about to be lit. Oh, my God. But, we are living through the first content president. Obama was the first to use social media from his team, but Donald Trump is the first content president, and this is wild to watch. Let's see. So a lot of celebrations here. Earlier, I was seeing a lot of anger and hate and disappointment. Like, let's see if I go through my timeline. Lives at TikTok trolling AOC, aka Sandy Cortez, who said, I don't think anyone is prepared for what they just did with ICE. This is not a simple budget increase. It is an explosion, making ICE bigger than the FBI, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, DEA, and other combined. It is setting up to make what's happening now look like child's play, and people are disappearing. Well, this is exactly what the voters wanted. When you have 30 million people who need to be removed from the country, probably most of them by force, unless they wise up and leave on their own, but you can't count on that. Yeah, you need them to be one of the biggest agencies right now. There was a massive, massive effort that will need to be undertaken to do the job. I mean, we're only just now getting to 2,000 arrests per day. You have to dramatically ramp that up. But of course, she's speaking to her voters. That's what this is. It's not actually, she knows this. She's not that stupid. I mean, she might appear that stupid, but I don't think that that's really true. I think she's smarter than she looks and appears. Just saying. This is a crazy lady or person. I'm assuming woman because of the color. Trump is calling a bill that he doesn't understand the only way to save America, and 50 people who mostly do understand it and hate it just voted for it because the guy who doesn't know what's in it told them to. It's the usual political drama. So it's going to be a wild ride, but there's nothing that the left can do now at this point politically for this bill. And now it's up to the Republican Party to make sure that they sell the bill, because if they do, because I remember 3,000 years ago when I was an itty bitty boy, the contract with America, this was the Republican takeover for the first time in 40 years of the House with Newt Gingrich and the boys. And they swept into power. There was this insane corruption by the Democrat Party. They were, if my memory serves, they were writing checks to themselves, cashing them out. And there was, the federal bank down there, and there was no accountability, and it was a big scandal. So the Republican Party swept in, and Bill Clinton wisely worked with them, and they balanced the budget for the first time in a long time, and I guess the last time in my lifetime that happened. And they got all this massive tax cuts in. Anyway, everything was great. but they didn't sell it to the American people, and the media and the left was able to convince people that they didn't care about the poor, that they wanted, grandma, grandpa to eat dog food. The same crying over Medicaid that you're seeing today, they had back then. So it was rinse and repeat. So that's the one thing that the right needs to watch out for, is they need to make sure that they don't just spike the football and say, cool, we won. They need to go in there and make sure that people understand. Otherwise, there could still be hell to pay. But that being said, Donald Trump, I don't think would let that happen. So, it is what it is.